Hi everybody and welcome back to my War Games hobby channel. Alec here, finally. I'm sorry I've not been able to post much recently. I've just been so busy, mainly with family matters. But I have been doing something, and this is what I want to show you now. It's a project I've been working on for the last sort of about 3 or 4 months, obviously with big chunks of time when I haven't been able to do anything, but they finally finished. Let me show you what they are. So here we are. Yes, I finally finished them, and that's as you know, I play a bit of Dragon Rampant, and you also know that I've got a lovely skeleton army which I enjoy playing. Well, graveyard dwellers they're called in the book, and I wanted a second fantasy army to use against them. Although I've been happily using other figures, Dark Age figures that I've got that do seem to fit well against skeletons, but I still wanted another fantasy army, and this is what I finally done. I finally finished my goblins. This time using the Oathmark plastic figures, which you can see here are the boxes. So here they are, all ready to go, and there's a mixture there. There's a few other units additional. They're not goblins, but for example, you can see over here I've got an Ent, because these are forest dwellers really, so I think an Ent goes well with them, although I could use an ogre. I've got an ogre I could use as well. And then we've got here some wild beasts, which are a mixture. Whoops, I see that wolf's facing the wrong way. I've got these 6 wild beasts, and the rest of them are goblins, as you can see. So let me just go through what I've got here, because it adds up to quite a bit. I didn't realise until I worked it all out. So here we have the Overlord, the Wolf Rider leader. At the moment, I'm counting him as elite rider. So he's going to be pretty hard to kill. And then I've got behind him, I've got another unit of elite, the Wolf Riders. Now I could have just called them heavy riders instead, which is what is in the book. If you look at the book, here's a photograph of the army list. But you know, these are pretty big wolves, aren't they? And I just think they should be counted as elite riders. I might try them as heavy riders as well at some point, but you can see on the list I've got here, I've got them down as elite riders because they're pretty big wolves and they're going to be pretty hard as nails and hard to kill as well. So that's what I'm calling them at the moment, elite riders. And then I've got another unit of elite riders next to them as well, but they've got they've got a bow. Again, I could have called them sort of the light riders with a bow and make them skirmish type cavalry, but because they've got pretty big wolves again, I just think they should be elite riders. You can upgrade them to have a bow anyway, so they're pretty hard as nails, these 2 units. They're going to be hard to beat, hard to kill, and they're going to be very effective. But they do, of course, they do cost, well, this unit is 6 points. They've still got the wild charge, whereas the leader, I've paid for him, you'll see, I've made him level-headed so he doesn't go charging off against enemy. I think he's going to be a bit more careful about what he does, whereas the heavy riders, sorry, the elite riders don't have that, so they could charge off doing a wild charge. Being bow-armed, these guys don't do a wild charge, but because they've got the extra 2 points for bow, it makes them late point units. It's quite expensive, but I think they're better fit as elite riders rather than heavy riders or light horse archers. Then coming round to the front here, I've got a unit of heavy foot. I've made them offensive, so they are obviously going to be pretty good, pretty aggressive when they attack as well. But again, that makes them 6 points. And then over here we've got some goblin light missiles. I've called them light missiles. They are armed with bows. Heavy missiles would be crossbows, but they're not heavy. They're just light missiles. But I have made them. I've upgraded them to sharpshooters, which makes them 6 points as well. I'm not sure I'd keep them as sharpshooters, but at the moment I want them to be quite effective, so I've graded them on the list as sharpshooters, but I might be flexible with that. It makes them a 6 point unit, as I say, which is rather expensive. Then we got a unit of 6 scouts, which is just armed with javelins, so that's the cheapest unit on the table, only 2 points. And then over here you can see I've got some wild animals. These count as lesser war beasts. I've made them cunning, which means that which gives them a better defense value, because at the moment they get a 4+ when they attack, but if they are attacked and they don't get the counter attack, they only hit on 6s, which I think seems a bit harsh. So I've upgraded them again, makes it a bit more expensive, but they at least do have a defense value of 5+ if they're charged. I found that lesser war beasts, because they don't have the counter charge, they get wild charge, but they don't get the counter charge, and they really can get caught out and die quite horribly. They do have armor of 3 though, which is reasonable, but when their offensive value is only or defensive value is only 6, it's not really I don't think right for wild animals. They would be able to defend themselves a little bit better. So and then at the back here we've got, of course, the Ent, which would be a greater war beast. And I've made I can have an ogre. I've got an ogre as well I can use, but I think the Ent sort of seems to work better with trolls, which were supposedly from the forest anyway. And I've made him ponderous, which means that the unit is better controlled than most, and therefore removes the wild charge. Again, I can either add that or not. It would only be 4. No, it'll be 6 points without the ponderous, and ponderous is only another point to have a little bit more control over it. May be flexible with that. So you can see the whole force comes to, that's 50 figures, that's 49 points. So it's quite a big army. I wouldn't necessarily always use them as a full army of 49, but I've got the flexibility to adjust things. For example, if I decided not to use the giant ogre or the Ent, that would be -7, and if I decided not to use the goblin light missiles as sharpshooters, that would take the 9 points off, which would make it 40 points, which is probably the sort of number that I'll be looking to use for an evening game. If I had no problems with time and how long the game takes, then I would probably use the entire army as it is, 49 points. So there we go. It looks pretty good, doesn't it? I'm pretty pleased with that. They come out a little bit dark. I used an undercoat, a light grey undercoat, but I felt that being goblins, they wouldn't exactly be clean. They would be a bit grubby looking. And by the time I painted them up and then washed them with Agrax Earthshade, it darkened them down quite a bit. But I think that they look fine as they are. I hope you agree. I'm not going to get too close to any of these, but you can see that they look the business. I'm really looking forward to using them either against my undead or just against another army I can put together. I always wanted 2 fantasy armies. I'm not going to be doing any more, I don't think. Although there is a new book of Dragon Rampant, of course, coming out later on in the year, and that might well get me enthusiastic again and maybe do even another one. But at the moment, I've got no plans to. I'm just going to stick to those 2 fantasy armies. My undead skeleton army and the goblins. Right, that's it for me. As I say, it's nice to see you all again, and apologies for not being around, but you quite understand why. But I'm back into the wargaming mode again at the moment, and in another, we've got the summer holidays, and so we're going to be helping out with my grandchildren, which are down in Poole, so we don't go and stay down there a little bit in the summer months. So I won't be around a great deal, but once the summer holidays are over, then I'll be getting back into the groove of doing more wargaming stuff. In fact, I find the winter months I do more wargaming than I do in the summer. But I hope you enjoyed seeing my new goblins. I've really enjoyed painting them again, and can't wait to get them on the table. And when I do, which will be shortly, either against my skeletons or against another opponent down the club, I'll video it and let you see how I get on. Right, in the meantime, enjoy your wargaming. See you again soon, guys.